internationally renowned Sri Lankan.
Doctor?
Good afternoon, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Chairman of the Foundation, esteemed panelists, session chair. Today we are here to start the 13th session of the Sri Lankan Innovators Forum, a session on the fisheries sector, which is headed by Mr. Amaravansa Hettiarachchi, a stalwart in the fisheries industry. In order to start today's session, let me introduce our writer of the issues paper. Mr. Hettiarachchi joined the Ministry of Fisheries in 1979 as an aquaculture officer and served at Polonnaruwa, Trincomalee, Udawalawe and Negombo in the capacity for 12 years. In 1991, he was appointed a director of the ministry and served in different divisions: planning development, export development, MCS divisions. In 2001, he was promoted as Director General Development Planning in the ministry and served in that capacity till he retired in 2007. During this period, he was thoroughly involved in the post-tsunami rehabilitation of the fisheries industry. He also initiated and established the new fish market at Paliyagoda, Dikkovita Fisheries Harbour. While in the service at the Ministry of Fisheries, he represented Sri Lanka at various regional and international discussions. These include pork bay fish poaching issues, Indian Ocean Rim Association, NACA Aquaculture Development, SARC Fisheries Forum, FAO Fish Trade Subcommittee, which was chaired by him. FAO Aquaculture Subcommittee, UN Fish Stock Agreement Evaluation each. Finally, he also chaired the FAO Committee on Fisheries in 2007, where FAO Fisheries policy was discussed. This was the first time a Sri Lankan chaired this meeting. After retirement, he served for 2 years at the IUCN Sri Lankan office handling the Mangroves of Future project, which was post-tsunami coastal environmental rehabilitation project. When EU banned import of fish from Sri Lanka, considering the Sri Lanka's non-cooperating country in combating IUU fishing, DFAR got his service to prepare a plan of action to combat IUU fishing and do several other tasks. Finally, during 2017-19 period, he also served as a local coordinator, consultant in the project for preparation of a new national fisheries and aquaculture policy with technical assistance from Norway. Under his project, a new policy was drafted and 2 draft acts, one of marine fisheries and one of aquaculture, was prepared. However, these were not formalized after the change of the government towards the end of 2019. So this is your author today and the presenter. And I would also like to introduce our panelists, which include our session chair, Ms. Mangalika Adhikari, former Secretary, Ministry of Fisheries and Ministry of Justice. The panelists are Mr. Marcus Mallikage, Director, Fisheries Management, Department of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources; Professor Upali Amarasinghe, Professor Emeritus in Zoology, University of Kelaniya, ex-researcher, Inland Aquatic Resource Division, NARA; Professor Mrs. Chamari Dissanayaka, Professor in Zoology and Environmental Science, University of Sri Jayawardenepura, former researcher, Marine Biological Resources Division, NARA; Mr. Nimal Chandraratna, former Director General, NACTA, private sector consultant in ornamental fisheries and shrimp farming. So in order to commence today's sessions, we would like you to enjoy a small video about the Sri Lanka Innovators Forum and the Gamini Korea Foundation.
The Sri Lanka Innovators Forum, SLIF, is an initiative of the Gamini Korea Foundation aimed at meaningfully contributing towards resolving the complex economic issues confronting the country today. The Gamini Korea Foundation was founded to take forward the passion of Dr. Gamini Korea to achieve just and equitable economic development in all countries. The late Dr. Gamini Korea was an internationally renowned Sri Lankan economist and an outstanding product of the universities of Cambridge and Oxford. Born on the 4th of November 1925 to Dr. C.V.S. Korea and Freda Korea, sister of Sir John Kotalavala, the then Prime Minister of Ceylon. Dr. Gamini Korea's grandfather and granduncle were the famous freedom fighters from Chilo, Victor Korea, who was a member of the Legislative Council of Ceylon, and Charles Korea. His uncle, Sir Claude Korea, was at the forefront of Sri Lanka's entry onto the world stage at the independence and for many years thereafter. Gamini Korea was educated at the Royal College Colombo, after which he started his higher education at the University of Ceylon in 1944 before going to study at Corpus Christi College, Cambridge and Nuffield College, Oxford from 1945 to 52. There he obtained 2 BAs and MAs from the University of Oxford and the University of Cambridge and a DPhil from University of Oxford. He was the first Sri Lankan to obtain a doctorate in economics. He was also the first Sri Lankan to obtain a doctorate from Oxford University in any subject. He was a key member of the Planning Committee for Sri Lanka's first 10-year plan, 1959, which sought to raise economic growth and reduce poverty. Among his numerous achievements was his appointment as the Secretary General of the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, where he negotiated the terms of the Loam Convention, a landmark agreement providing development and access to European markets to Africa and the Caribbean. He was an early proponent of the equitable development who worked tirelessly for trade and development in developing countries. The Gamini Korea Foundation provides opportunities for meaningful economic engagement through rigorous multidisciplinary research to promote inclusive and sustainable development.
Sorry.
The Sri Lanka Innovators Forum, SLIF, is an initiative of the Gamini Korea Foundation aimed at meaningfully contributing towards resolving the complex economic issues confronting the country today. The Gamini Korea Foundation was founded to take forward the passion of Dr. Gamini Korea to...
Sorry about that.
The Sri Lanka Innovators Forum, SLIF, is an initiative of the Sri...
I'm extremely sorry about that. There's a small glitch. Yeah, try to sort it out.
The Sri Lanka...
Yeah, sorry about that. I think there's a small glitch in the video. Anyway, in order to commence the proceedings today, I would like to there's a slight problem in it. I would like to introduce our chairman, Dr. Lloyd Fernando, to give a welcome speech. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much to all of you for being with us today. I see a distinguished crowd, some people whom I knew when I was there also in the public service. But I would like to welcome all of you, and I look forward to a good discussion after the panel has done its work. This is an area in which I have no idea whatsoever. Even when I go to eat, you see, my wife has to tell me, "Munada me kanne me talapat maluda." I have to ask her, "Paramaluda," and so I'm clueless. In fact, the area in which I'm at sea, but such an important area. You see, we are dealing with so many sectors, and my own feeling is that, maybe because of my ignorance, this is one area which the governments of the day have failed to really come to grips with some of the fundamental issues. This is an area in which large numbers of people depend for their livelihoods. So poverty and livelihood development are two things that we have to deal with. On the other hand, when you look around, as a layman I see, the country is surrounded by water, sea. So we should really take advantage of that to forge ahead in our development process. I leave it to you to tell us where we stand today, what are the problems that we face, and how are we dealing with them. You see, the Gamini Korea Foundation, we set up this thing called the Sri Lanka Innovators Forum, which is to consult the diaspora, you see, with regard to new technologies and new methods of management, etc., from which we can learn a lot and adapt ourselves also, so to be innovative. And what we did was we first started registering a lot of people from abroad, the diaspora, and thought we will go to them and then ask them for their advice. But before that, we found that we had to have our own thinking put together. So what we did was we started deploying sectoral studies. 20-odd sectoral studies were launched, and out of that, I think about 14 are with us now. And we will be, each sector study done by an eminent practitioner, eminent person who's an expert in the subject. We have drawn most from the universities and from scientific research institutes. All sectors, you see, starting with macroeconomics, which Professor Columbage, who's a member of our board, has tackled. And then, so once we complete that stage, we will be taking this up, each one of the sectors with the people abroad. We can learn from them. Now where fisheries sector is also concerned, perhaps you will be able to tell us what can we learn from other countries. Maybe our diaspora members who are closer to the organizations there, they could tell us what changes have taken place. You see, we cannot stand still with regard to our own, systems operating. We have to be innovative. We have to look for new methods, new technologies, you see, new ways of deploying people, training people, etc. So we will start the ball rolling on that aspect very soon, because we are going to complete the first round. All the papers will be completed by about end of February, and then we will be launching this program with the diaspora. Of course, it would be, you must be also knowing some people, some of your colleagues who are now abroad and working for some important organizations, and we might be able to deploy them in our effort to bring about change in this country. Without taking too much of your time, let me tell you that I'm extremely happy that you found it convenient to come today. Of course, we have the panel, the distinguished panel, chaired by the distinguished lady who was an old friend of ours, a colleague of ours in the ministry. And after that, we will ask members who are in the audience also to participate in the discussion. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lloyd, Chairman of the Gamini Korea Foundation. Without further ado, I would like to welcome Mr. Amaravansa Hettiarachchi, writer, to present his paper. Thank you very much, sir. Over to you.
Thank you, Sohan. Dr. Lloyd Fernando, Mrs. Adhikari, former Secretary Minister of Fisheries and Minister of Justice, Professor Amar Singh, and Professor Jayanta Vijayaratne is also here. He also has come. Mr. Vijayaratne. All are my friends actually. Most of them are my friends. Not most, I think all of them are my friends. And they all know about fisheries. Perhaps except Dr. Lloyd Fernando and Sohan, others know about fisheries. So I do not even present this now. Anyway, since I have prepared this, I will present it. This is what Dr. Lloyd Fernando said. The Gamini Korea Foundation has come forward to help the Sri Lankan policymakers fight through the current economic crisis by getting Sri Lankan expatriates attached to international knowledge organizations to provide with information on innovative practices undertaken by some other countries which face similar situations to normalize the economy. For this, GC has identified 20 sectors. Fisheries is one of them, and assign local experts to prepare information papers on status, policies, issues, local conditions, etc., relevant to each sector. So this information will be furnished to expatriates so that they could assess the level of the crisis in Sri Lanka with a view to suggesting solution to the issues. Fishing and the fisheries sector. Now, fishing is a livelihood of the coastal communities. As a livelihood, has a long tradition in Sri Lanka, perhaps more than 2,000 years. These communities caught fish from naturally occurring stocks in the sea and adjacent waters on the land side, such as lagoons and estuaries, for their living. In addition, about 3% of the extent of the country comprise inland water bodies which have been built for irrigation since historical times. However, no inland fishing was practiced in the country since there were no suitable fish in those reservoirs, because the reservoirs, country surrounded by the sea, no freshwater fish enter Sri Lankan reservoirs. Only small fish which cannot support commercial fisheries. However, around 1950s, the exotic tilapia was introduced with the view to realize the potential of these reservoirs to produce fish and develop commercial fisheries. Aquaculture or farming fish under controlled conditions is comparatively recent development, which was commenced in 1980s. The fishery sector is a part of economy of the country that is created by production of fish, that is fin fish, crustaceans, molluscans, holothurians for commercial purposes. Fisheries sector, there are a lot of commercial activities in the fisheries sector. That is why it's a big sector, and providing a lot of employment. The one is production of fish, then collection and local distribution of fish. That itself is a big task. Then fish processing, dressing, canning, drying, smoking, preparation of cooked products, etc., and quality management. Then fish export. In addition, you get in the sector, you have to prepare fishing boats and supply fishing boats, engines, fishing gear and other fishing equipment, and supply of other inputs like fuel, water, ice, fish carrier boxes, etc. Then provision of harbour and anchorage facilities, the repair and maintenance of fishing boats and engines, construction of aquaculture facilities, ponds, cages, pens, etc. Production and supply of seed fish for aquaculture. Production or import and supply of feed, fertilizer, chemicals, etc. for aquaculture. Then development of manpower, fisheries and aquaculture. So that means there's a lot of activities is involved in this. That's a lot of people are involved. There's a big crowd employed in the sector in different capacities and different work. Then the sector supports other businesses as well. One is provision of facilities for sport fishing, then production of live ornamental fish, then production of edible or ornamental aquatic plants, that is also part of fisheries sector, provision of facilities for watching of whales and other charismatic marine animals such as dolphins and dugongs, provision of facilities for yachting, then establishment of land-based underwater aquaria, establishment of fish restaurants, etc., etc. A lot of other businesses also there, the sector supports. Then current performance of the sector. National fish production, total from marine fisheries and inland fisheries and aquaculture is around 500,000 tons annually. So value addition is US dollars 1.3 billion rupees per year. Value addition in the sense now that is you have to leave for fuel, then capital depreciation and all that, then the value addition is the value of the fish after deducting all these costs, it will be about 1.3 billion annually. Then supply of fish for local consumption. 475 tons at an average is supplied for local consumption. That is, per capita consumption is 21.6 kilograms, which is the amount recommended by MRI for a healthy life. For daily, you have to, annually, you have to consume this one. Or 59.2 grams per day you have to consume for a healthy life. Then direct employment as fishers and fish workers, about 600,000. Then according to the statistics I got from the ministry, the total livelihoods they are given 2.7 million. I don't know whether it is correct or not, because the total population is 22 million, so you can't be 10% of the people fishers, no? So I think it is not correct. Then total export earnings from the sector is US dollar 300 million annually, 300 million currently. These are customs figures. Then the fisheries contribute to SDG also, Sustainable Development Goals. One is SDG 1, end poverty in all its forms everywhere. Then SDG 2, end hunger, achieve food security and improve nutrition and promote sustainable. It says agriculture. I think this is for agriculture, but you can promote sustainable aquaculture. Then ensure healthy lives and promote well-being for all at all stages, all ages. Promote sustained, inclusive and sustainable economic growth, full and productive employment and decent work for all. Then there's one SDG, SDG 14, for ocean resources. That is, they say, conserve and sustainable use oceans, seas and marine resources for sustainable development. That is the SDG 14. This is the sectoral performance, annual performance from 2016 to 2020 and 2021 figures also I have. There are some increase, further increase, production has further increased in 2021. Then import, the local consumption, so we import fish, and this is the import is slightly reducing for local consumption. Then this is the export. The 2021, there's a slight increase over the 2019 figure. I think we will skip this because these are in my paper. You will get all in my paper. I think all this information is there, so you can read leisurely. External trade in fish trade and trade balance. Now, in 2020, you have exported 21,000 tons of fish, and income realized is $215 million US dollars. Then to import, we have imported 2020 85,000 tons, and for that we have spent 191 million US dollars. So there's a trade balance both in favor of Sri Lanka, both in terms of the value and the volume. That means you export a small amount of fish, and at that cost to import much more fish for local consumption. Because you import dry fish, sprats, etc., so you can import a larger volume. You export only high-value species like tuna, then shrimp, crab, lobster, etc. There's an exporter also here. He will, I think, explain these things. Then policies, programs, and plans followed and the impact. Now, fisheries, as I said, it's coming for 2,000 years. So I will, of course, I have gone through Mahavans also to get the policies. Of course, the kings are not involved in fisheries. They have not intervened into that I think they were ruled in the interior place. Now, under the British rule, of course, Dutch and Portuguese, they intervened, and in fact, they used that to convert people to their religion also. For Christians and Dutch have some other religion. I don't know how it is Christian, but some other part. So they were given some exemptions without, they did not pay duty on that. Now, under the British rule, from 1906 to 1948, priority for regulation of pearl fisheries and chang fisheries, because they were generating revenue for the country, for the government. So they were regulated under specific laws like Pearl Fisheries Ordinance of 1925. Before that also there was ordinance, but I couldn't find it. Then Chang's Ordinance of 1842. Chang's and sea cucumber also under the same ordinance. So they were regulated. And then food fisheries was controlled using regulation under different laws, that is Game Protection Act, Game Protection Ordinance, then Local Government Ordinance, to prevent, the objective was to prevent destructive fishing and resolve fishing disputes and collect revenue. Now, Code in 1807 says access to fishing rented to men of property and credit. Not everybody could fish during the British rule. It was rented, access was rented. There were renters to men of property and credit only. That is why they could get money from that. And this practice made fish an expensive item of food, although extremely abundant. Fish was extremely abundant, but was very expensive because of the method they deployed for harvesting and distribution. Then Fisheries Ordinance number 24, 1940, enacted to consolidate the law related to fisheries and protect fish in Ceylon waters, provide for the registration of fishing boats, and better regulate the fishing industry. Pearl fisheries and chang fisheries are still continue to be regulated under the respective ordinances there. In 1940, Department of Fisheries also was established under the Fisheries Ordinance. So that was the first time Fisheries Department was established for management of fisheries. Prior to that, it was the museum. Under the museum, fisheries was regulated under the museum director of museum. Dr. P.P. Dharanik was the director of fisheries for some time since. So the Fisheries Ordinance covers only territorial sea. During that time, territorial sea was only up to 3 miles from the coast. So that is a distance that you can send a cannonball. So that is the area of sea that was under direct control of the government. So any law could be enforced in the territorial sea only up to 3 miles. Then fishing for profit required a fishing license, but Ceylonese persons and companies are exempted from that requirement. Then post-independent era, since 1948. So development policy and objectives changed. Fisheries no more considered as a source of revenue for the government, but considered a source of animal protein that will enhance the nutritional status of the masses and livelihood of coastal communities. Then one other objective was improve the living standards of the fisher community and increase the national, this to be achieved by increasing the national fish production. So since 1948, different strategies are implemented to increase the national fish production. One is the marine fishing craft. Earlier they were using this ordinary traditional craft, but they were motorized with outboard motors. The larger fishing vessels, 3.5-ton boats with inboard engines were introduced. They were using cotton fish nets. They were replaced with synthetic fish nets during that time. And fishery harbors and anchorages constructed to accommodate larger fishing vessels. Earlier there were no fishery harbors, they were just landing on the land, just beach landing, but now they were constructing fishery harbors. Then fishers were provided with training in navigation and fishing. Other strategies were to prevent destruction of fish resources, use of explosives, stupefying substances, and resource destructive fishing were prohibited. Then, if you use explosive, of course, even now, no bail, no, they will be remanded. To prevent the entry of undesirable exotic fish species, import of their live eggs, raw or spawn, restricted or prohibited. The Ceylon Fisheries Corporation established in 1964 to undertake commercial fishing and fish marketing. Now they don't do commercial fishing, but during that time they were fishing in the Pork Bay area. The Ceylon Fisheries Harbours Corporation was established in 1972 to undertake planning, construction and management of fishery harbours. So national fish production in 1940 it was only 40,000 estimated value. 60 it has increased to these Department of Fisheries statistics, 52,500 tons, 62, 84,400 tons, and 1964, 102,000. Then activities of the government that had impacts on fisheries. The territorial sea, I said it was only 3 miles. In 1957, it was extended to 7 miles. And in 1973, to 12 miles. These were done in India, also did the same thing in the same year. The maritime boundary between India and Sri Lanka in the Pork Bay and the Gulf of Mannar was settled respectively in 1974 and 1976. So 1974, Kachati was accepted as part of Sri Lanka, and with the 1974 agreement. 1976, other parts of the area of the Pork Bay boundary was determined. The expected impact was the maritime area of the resource base available for Sri Lankan fishers to fish in the Pork Bay and the Gulf of Mannar without competition from the Indian fishers increased. So that was the expected impact, but it never happened, of course. I will come to that a little later. Then, during this time, the Law of the Sea Convention was being discussed. It was finalized in 1982. So, seeking finalization, most of the countries proclaimed the maritime zones in accordance with the Law of the Sea. So, in Sri Lanka, Maritime Zones Law of number 22 of 1976 enacted, enabling the President to declare the territorial sea and other maritime zones, and defining the continental shelf and maritime boundary between Sri Lanka and India. The proclamation issued in 1977 by the President under Maritime Zones Law, so declaring the territorial sea, that is 12 miles, then contiguous zone, another 12 miles, that is contiguous zone, is to implement laws to facilitate the law enforcement in the territorial sea. Then the exclusive economic zone, which was up to 200 miles from the baselines or from the shore. Then continental shelf, historic waters and the pollution prevention zone. Continental shelf is the beyond the territorial sea, the sea bottom. In the continental shelf, all the resources also the country can harvest, but no other country can do it. But the resources in the water column beyond 200 miles, there are no exclusive rights. Sri Lanka has no exclusive right over the continental shelf. But the resources embedded in the shelf, that is the fish who like crab, lobster, etc., who can travel in keeping their one of the feet on the bottom, is treated as a species that belong to that particular country. Then Sri Lankan fishers also had the right to fish on high seas. So beyond the exclusive economic zone, it was high seas. Sri Lankans also could, anybody could fish on high seas in comparison with fishers from other countries. In addition, now 1,850 square kilometers internal waters also available for inland fisheries and aquaculture. The era of open economy since 1977, the government that came to office in 1977 adopted the policy of open economy and decided, among other things, to open the fisheries sector for foreign investment and invite foreign fishing vessels to fish in defined areas of the EEZ. Not in the entire area of the EEZ, some defined areas. To regulate, control and manage fishing activities by foreign fishing vessels, Sri Lankan waters, the government enacted a new act, the Fisheries Regulation of Foreign Fishing Boats Act, number 59 of 1979. So there were regulations issued under this act. So they restricted issuance of foreign fishing permits for fishing operations within 35 nautical miles from the baselines. So up to 35 nautical miles, it was reserved for local fishers. However, an approved joint venture, that means joint venture with Sri Lankan partnership, could obtain a permit valid for fishing beyond 24 nautical miles. The NARA was established in 1982 for research purposes. Prior to that, there was a research division in the Department of Fisheries, and finally, it was subsequently it was taken over by ministry. In 1982, NARA was established as an independent organization. Then the 13th Amendment made to the Constitution in 1987 provided for establishment of provincial council for devolution of power at the provincial level. So in accordance with this amendment, only the central government has jurisdiction over fisheries in the exclusive EEZ and on high seas, while provincial councils could exercise jurisdiction concurrently with the central government in respect of fisheries in the territorial sea and in internal waters. However, not a single provincial council has passed a statute enabling it to exercise this authority. So it was only they could only provide some subsidies, etc., but they couldn't legally manage the fishing activities in the territorial sea, either territorial sea or inland waters. Then, as I said, now the Fisheries Ordinance was enacted in 1940. There were many amendments made to it, but it was felt that this is no longer sufficient to manage the fisheries. So in 1996, new act was enacted, Fisheries and Aquatic Resources Act number 2 of 1996. Then Fisheries Ordinance was repealed at the same time. The technological developments and continuous investments made by different nations in fisheries resulted in exponential increase in the global fish production from its pre-1950 levels during the half century that followed. That means before 1950, there was some production of fish, but there were a lot of improvements made by some countries, and the production increased exponentially. So by 1950, it was clear that the fisheries resources cannot absorb and sustain an uncontrolled expansion of fishing activities. Because earlier people thought there's enough fish in the sea, so there's no problem, you can harvest enough fish. But it was felt that that level of harvesting could not be continued without affecting the status of the fish resources and ensure their sustainability. Then United Nations Law of the Sea Convention, which was adopted in 10 December 1982 and came to force on 16 November 1994, provides a framework for a system of governance for all ocean affairs that include fisheries. So before that, there was no law that was consolidated to handle all oceanic affairs. It was different laws, but now when the UNCLOS, so United Nations law, the convention, CF convention was adopted, so that provided all provisions to control all affairs related to ocean. Then FA also formulated certain agreements. One is FAO Compliance Agreement in 1993, then UN Fish Stocks Agreement in 1995, and agreement for establishment of the Indian Ocean Tuna Commission. The objective of these agreements was to prevent over-exploitation of the fisheries by other countries. So you were required to comply with the requirements of these agreements. The compliance agreement means all parties, whether they are members of an RFM, that means Regional Fisheries Management Organization like IOTC, or not, shall ensure that vessels flying their flag do not engage in any activity that undermines the effectiveness of conservation and management of measures adopted by that RFM. So states should not allow their vessels to fish on high seas without authorization. Now, up to I think 2015, Sri Lankan vessels could not be licensed for fishing in the high seas because there were no provisions. There were no provisions in the Act. So they just went. That's why our fish was not accepted by EU also after some time. Then Indian Ocean Tuna Commission was formed to manage tuna and other fisheries in that area, statistical data 51 and 57, and they are meeting every year and adopt some conservation and management measures. All parties that are members of that commission have to abide by those. They have to follow those conservation and management measures. Then there was another one, FAO Port State Measures Agreement. That means foreign fishing vessels that fish on high seas are generally allowed to land fish in some other countries because they bring fish and they provide landing fish that they buy inputs from the country where they land fish. They pay harbor fees, etc. But there was an agreement. There are requirements. If you allow foreign fishing vessels to use Sri Lankan port or any port for landing fish, you have to follow certain requirements. That is to prevent IUU fishing. I will come to that. This illegal, unreported and unregulated fishing, IUU fishing. Illegal fishing, it said, undermines the conservation management measures adopted by many countries. So this has to be, all countries have agreed that this has to be prevented at any cost. So illegal fishing means fishing activities conducted by national law foreign vessels in waters under jurisdiction of a state, that means in Sri Lanka, waters of Sri Lanka, without permission from that state or in contravention of its laws and regulations. So if a foreign fishing vessel fish in Sri Lankan waters, they have to get permission and they have to abide by fisheries laws and regulations of Sri Lanka. Then fishing conducted by vessels flying the flag of states that are parties to relevant regional fisheries management organization but operate in contravention of the conservation and management measures adopted by RFMO and by which the states are bound and or relevant provisions of the applicable international law. then in violation of national laws or international obligations, including those undertaken by cooperating states to the relevant RFMO. Unreported fishing means if a vessel undertake fishing, they have to provide statistics, how much fish they have caught, from where caught, like that. So unreported means they have to report it. Unreported fishing means which have not been reported or have been misreported to the relevant national authority or in contravention of the national laws of regulation. Or if fishing is undertaken in the area of an RFMO, you have to provide that information to that particular RFMO also, and with copy to FAO. Then unregulated fishing means there are certain fishing activities, certain areas in the ocean, no regulation is been made. So there also all vessels have to fish in a manner that is not inconsistent with the contravenes the conservation and management measures of a particular RFMO, or in areas for fish stocks in relation to which there are no applicable conservation and management measures, and where such fishing activities are conducted in a manner inconsistent with state responsibility for the conservation and living marine resources under international law. Under international law, a country is responsible for conservation of living marine resources. So, in contravention of that, if a vessel undertakes fishing, vessel of that particular country, so that is they are doing IUU fishing. So IUU fishing poses a serious threat to the sustainability of fisheries, both in national jurisdictions and on high seas, and therefore has to be prevented, deterred or eliminated to ensure the sustainability of fish resources. The states were expected to develop and implement action plans to combat IUU fishing. The FAO has developed an international action plan to prevent, deter and eliminate IUU fishing, provide guidance to states to develop and implement national action plans. All states, flag states, coastal states and port states and market states have to have different responsibilities. All states, then flag states means where a vessel is registered under that flag, it's called flag state. If a Sri Lankan vessel, flag state is Sri Lanka. Then coastal states is the water belong to that particular state, it's a coastal state. Port state is a state if a harbor is used for land fish or land such vessel, it's called a port state. Market states is states where fish is marketed from one country. So all states have different responsibilities to combat IUU fishing. However, Sri Lankan fisheries management, or it was non-management, continued regardless. That means there were no provision in the act to control fishing by Sri Lankan vessels on the high seas. So even without any license, they were going to high seas and fishing. Finally, what happened was the European Commission notified Sri Lanka on 15 November 2012 of the possibility of being identified as a non-cooperating third country in fighting IUU fishing, citing the following shortcomings. These are the shortcomings. Lack of legislation providing for licensing of fishing on high seas. So we didn't have regular legislation to license fishing on high seas. Lack of a vessel monitoring system. Lack of legislation providing for catch reporting. So the catch has to be reported, that is, statistics have to be provided. But there was no legislation for that also. Then non-ratification of FAO compliance agreement and FAO port state measures agreement. That Sri Lanka has not even ratified those agreements. So non-implementation of certain resolutions for IOT. People go and meet, people go for IOTC meeting, but they don't come here and take action to implement those resolutions. So EC sent a card, yellow card, and finally banned the import of fish from Sri Lanka, effective from mid-January 2015. Then I think Mrs. Adhikari was also there. The government had to do the government that came to office in 2015. Of course, Mr. Mangal Samaravit was the foreign minister. Somehow took action to implement all requirements. There were 57 tasks to be performed. This we didn't have a monitoring VMS, so VMS was established, and a lot of things were done. It took about 2 years to complete all the requirements, to fulfill all the requirements. Then the post-tsunami rehabilitation of fisheries, now everybody knows that tsunami destroyed the entire fisheries sector except in few districts, Gampa, Puttalam, Manai and Kilinochchi. So of a fishing fleet of 2,000, 54% are totally destroyed and 23% are damaged. 4,800 fish are reported dead. So most of the countries came for our assistance, and finally somehow we managed to rehabilitate the industry. Under this theme, Build Back Better, BBB, that means earlier it was not good, but they were provided with fishes, provided with good housing, and then harvest rehabilitated, good vessels are brought in like that. I don't take much time on that. The inland fisheries and aquaculture, as mentioned earlier, Sri Lanka had no natural lakes, but a large number of man-made lakes or reservoirs with a total water area of over 3% of the country. As I said, as the country is surrounded by sea, these reservoirs remain free of naturally occurring lake fish and support inland fisheries. So to realize the potential, since 1940s, a lot of fish were introduced, even during the British time, like carps, etc., were introduced, but they didn't get established. Finally, tilapia was introduced in 1950. Then that was a suitable fish for culture in lakes. In 1970, under an accelerated inland fishery development program, fish breeding centers were set up in different parts of the country to produce seed fish for stock in reservoirs, and those interested in engaging in inland fishing were provided with craft and gear under subsidy scheme. Skip these slides. These are the inland fish production. In 1960, 1,524. In 2020, 101,000 was harvested from inland fisheries and aquaculture. Mr. Chandraratne is there, the DG Nagda, and the current chairman is also there, so they were quite busy in developing this, realizing these objectives. Then opportunities and options available. Creation of a blue economy. The blue economy is the sustainable use of ocean resources for economic growth, improved livelihood and jobs, while preserving the health of ocean ecosystem. This is the World Bank definition. EU definition is a little slightly different. And under the concept of blue economy, there's a global trend for new economic activities associated with the ocean. That is, new marine industries utilizing living marine resources. It is not fish, but living marine resources utilized for produce new things. So like you said, this the omega-3 fatty acid tablets, capsules, like that, new industries. Then marine bioprospecting. That means use the genetic resources for produce medicines, etc. So one of the Norwegians said, if you find one gene, you can make a production, even they also don't do. It will be more valuable than the entire fish population of the entire ocean. Then marine-based tourism, marinas, sports fishing, I mentioned earlier also, surfing, etc. Then offshore hydrocarbons and seabed minerals. Then marine biotechnology, research and development. So these new economic activities, apart from optimizing the benefit from marine resources, may even reduce the pressure now exerted on the fish resources by fishers, because they also will live for new economic activities. So that is one opportunity available for development. Then ever increasing demand for fisheries and aquaculture products in the domestic international markets has provided opportunities for increase the share of the fisheries sector in the national economy. To benefit from such opportunities, new investments have to be made, ensuring that fish resources, both marine and inland, are not co-exploited. Development of the sector does not come into conflict with the activities of other sectors. However, the fishing activities should conform to the requirements as stipulated in international treaties. Then opportunities for investment, I think it is given in my report. Then I will discuss, because there's no time as far as constraints and issues. The government policy in regard to certain important areas are changed frequently. Government policies change frequently, so that is one issue, one constraint, with the inconsistent sectoral policy. So any government comes, they change the policy. So investors will not come. Investors should have a consistent policy. For instance, now provided license in 1979 to foreign fishing vessels to fish in EEZ in areas not reserved for fishing by local fishers, and this practice was discontinued in 1986. With fishers objected, so it was discontinued. Then disengagement of fishery harbours from commercial activities, like supply of fishing vessels, operation of boat repair facilities, supply of ice to fishing vessels. Then divestiture of commercial assets to private sector in 1989, divested all commercial assets. But this policy was revoked, and then those assets were taken back in 1994. The government that came in 1994, those assets were taken back forcibly. Now, they were. Third one was withdrawal state patronage to inland fisheries and aquaculture in 1991. So it was revoked, and state patronage was restored in 1994. So when the policy is not consistent, private sector investors will be reluctant to invest in the sector. Then the orientation of the development towards welfare of the fisher communities. So orientation, the sector is mostly for welfare of the fisher communities. It is provided, they will be provided with housing, that and this. But the low priority to industrialization needs. You have to industrialize the sector, but fishers object. So it is politically, it is important. Fishers are important lot politically. So they listen to fishers and not to the experts in the sector. Now, for example, there was a proposal to build up a modern fishery harbour at a selected place in Nigambu, for which ADB has provided funds. That was abandoned due to pressure from the church. Then the issue of license to foreign fishing vessels to fish in EEZ, even for exploiting fish stocks that are not exploited by local fishermen, was discontinued due to pressure from the fishers. Then it had not been possible to issue fish landing permits for foreign fishing vessels fishing in international waters to land their catches in certain fishery harbours for processing and re-export due to objection from the fishers. These foreign fishing vessels are not allowed to land in every port, but only in a selected, that is the code fishery harbour only. Irrational subsidies and unregulated capital formation. It is clear from the large number of small fishing craft issued under the subsidy scheme to fish in inshore waters that subsidies provided in the fisheries sector have been irrational. This has threatened the sustainability of the inshore fish resources. Then institutional weaknesses. Some of the institutions in the fisheries sector have been quite inefficient and have not served adequately the purpose for which they were established. One is the Ceylon Fisheries Corporation, which has been in existence for well over 50 years, has not been able to make a positive impact in the fishing industry or fish trade. In fact, the fishing industry has been compelled to share the burden of supporting the survival of CFC. That is, when they were buying fish from the foreign fishing vessels, fish exporting companies, they were compelled to provide a part of that of Fisheries Corporation. Otherwise, they can't exist. Then there's also criticism against NARA. There are two ladies in NARA also, former NARA, of course, they are. The research information it generates has not much impact on fishing activities. Then poaching of resources in Sri Lankan waters by foreign vessels. So this is very severe in Pork Bay and Gulf of Mannar area. Indian fisheries using large number of thousands of mechanized bottom trawlers heavily poach shrimp resources 3 days a week, obstructing the fishing activities of Sri Lankan fishers. And this causes heavy losses to Sri Lankan economy annually over rupees 1 billion. This was estimated in long ago. And sometimes lead to violent disputes between the two groups. Mechanized trawling is banned in Sri Lanka, but Indian trawlers carry on regardless. Of course, Navy will coming and catching them, but it is not enough unless you do. The two countries, they never let Sri Lankan fishers to fish peacefully in our waters. Then marine pollution, microplastic pollution originated from different sources. The Express Pearl incident. The local source of marine pollution includes some local industries and hotels. High cost of fuel and electricity, that's another problem. And the fish production from sea is totally dependent on fuel. Then since the price of diesel and kerosene has been heavily increased, cost of operating fishing vessels is very high, and as a result, fish prices have to be increased heavily to recover the cost. A large section of consumers are unable to pay high prices and buy fish. As a result, not all fishing vessels are being used in fishing operations. Then high cost of electricity also has increased the price of ice and cost of production in fish processing establishments that process fish for export and also in aquaculture farms. So Sri Lankan fish exporters find it difficult to compete with fish exports from other countries owing to high cost of production. Delays in clearance of investment proposals, particularly in aquaculture. Sometimes it takes a very long time to process an investment proposal for aquaculture for environmental clearance and providing land for establishment. Then conflicts with other sectors like cultural traditions, then development activities in other sectors, like hotels, livestock, etc. Access to markets. Suggested new policies now. We prepared a new policy during Mrs. Adhikari's time with the assistance of Norwegians, technical assistance. So they provided new policies. Of course, they suggested promote equal opportunities for women's participation in the activities of the sector, equal access to resources. Then ensure that no human rights are violated in development of the sector. Thirdly, work for prevention of corruption and economic fraud, including fish laundering. Fish laundering means IUU fishing, selling IUU fishing as good fish. Then also levy a royalty for taking fish from specified species in Sri Lanka waters and fees for allocation of catch quotas of species managed by IOTs. Now, fish is the only resource that is allowed to fish without royalty. No? Now, if you cut trees, you have to pay. If you mine sand, you have to pay. If you mine gems, government have to be paid. but fish they fish without paying any royalty. But you can enforce also very difficult. It will be very difficult politically. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hettiarachchi. You can actually take the seat in front. Ms. Hettiarachchi, you can take your seat. And also, I would like to invite our session chair, Ms. Mangalika Adhikari, to take her seat in front. She was former Secretary, Ministry of Fisheries and Ministry of Justice. I would like to invite Mr. Marcus Mallikage, Director Fisheries Management, Department of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources, to take his seat. And Professor Upali Amarasinghe, Professor Emeritus Zoology, University of Kelaniya, ex-researcher, Inland Aquatic Resource Division, NARA, to take his seat. Professor Ms. Chamari Disanayaka, Professor in Zoology and Environmental Science, University of Sri Jayawardenepura, former researcher, Marine Biological Resources Division, NARA. Mr. Nimal Chandraratna, former Director of General of NACTA, private sector consultant in ornamental fisheries and shrimp farming. I would like to request the session chair to commence the panel discussion. I know Mr. Hettiarachchi pointed out two constraints and issues in the fisheries industry and problems. I'm sure they will touch upon this. Over to you, Mr.
Chairman of the Gamini Korea Foundation, Dr. Lloyd Fernando, the members of the head table, and the ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to very briefly sum up what Mr. Hettiarachchi presented. In fact, I am thankful to Mr. Hettiarachchi for the insightful presentation, which captured most of the important issues related to the fisheries sector. If I may recall what Mr. Hettiarachchi presented is, he was very very precisely talking about the historical perspective of the fisheries sector of Sri Lanka and how the marine fisheries evolved over a period of 2,000 years, and also the aquaculture very short period like 60 to 70 years. And the areas where we should focus, especially when Dr. Lloyd Fernando said this is not this session is not just presenting a paper and having a discussion. This is going to be a preparation of an action plan, and also looking forward to have some investors, especially the diaspora community, as well as any other interested local or foreign investors to come and invest in the Sri Lanka's fisheries sector. So Mr. Hettiarachchi will touch upon all the important subject matters, the legal framework and the institutional setup that the Sri Lanka is having currently, and also the international regulations and laws that Sri Lanka has to be complied in order to develop fisheries sector, and also the constraints for investors, especially. And my experience also, I tried my best, level best to find some investors for the fisheries sector, but I would like to say very sadly, none of the investors, I was 3 years in the fisheries ministry as the secretary, so many investors came to Sri Lanka, but due to many reasons which I do not like to mention in a forum like this, but no investors came and started their industries in Sri Lanka. So I think this is going to be an opportunity where the Gamini Korea Foundation and collaboratively with the Ministry of Finance and the National Planning Department and the Department of and the Ministry of Fisheries together to find out something very concrete that the fisheries sector can go further beyond its current situation. I think it's time for me to introduce, according to what Shohan said, the panel members will have 10 minutes time given to discuss the issues I think basically we should not focus on what Mr. Hettiarachchi mentioned, because it's going to be a repeating and also time-consuming matter. I would request the panel members to discuss the areas where you think that Mr. Hettiarachchi may have forgotten to mention about very important areas, or else whatever the knowledge that you all are having, because Mr. Nimal Chandraratna is the former Director General. He knows about the aquaculture, and Professor Upali Marasinghe and Kumarasinghe and Professor Chamari, they all are from the university. And when I was in the Fisheries Ministry, there was a very good industry-university collaboration for the development of fisheries sector. I think they also know very well about what are the issues that we should discuss at this forum, so that especially Professor Dr. Lloyd Fernando, who doesn't know many things about the fisheries, now I think he has an eye-opener from Mr. Hettiarachchi's presentation, and his knowledge will further be enhanced by the panel members' discussion. And I would like to invite Professor Amarasinghe to speak about the issues of the fisheries sector for 10 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Adhikari. First and foremost, I must congratulate Mr. Hettiarachchi and Gamini Korea Foundation for organizing this event, and also for preparing very comprehensive review on the fishery sector in Sri Lanka. So, as the report indicates, this review is extremely invaluable for the policymakers to plan future development strategies in the sector amidst the economic crisis in the country. So I wish to make some remarks on the section 5, that is fisheries development objectives and options available. So regarding the draft fisheries or national fisheries and aquaculture policy, I wish to inform this audience that a team of professionals conducted a world island-wide community consultation workshops on the draft policy, especially to get the opinions about the incorporation of the FAO voluntary guidelines on inland fisheries, small-scale fisheries. So based on the outcomes, we have submitted some amendments to be included in the draft policy, and the Ministry of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources is in the process of incorporating these proposed amendments. Then regarding blue economy, so it is necessary to adopt an interactive governance approach where all parties relevant to small-scale fisheries to reach to an agreement to prevent the inherent weakness of the concept of blue economy, that is the blue injustice. In many blue economy initiatives, small-scale fisheries are remaining marginalized. So it's also a fact that in many small-scale fisher communities, there have been a wealth of accumulation of local ecological knowledge accumulated over the generations. Unfortunately, this local ecological knowledge is considered as anecdotal. And as a result, this local ecological knowledge is not treated as valuable resource in policymaking arena. So recognition of local ecological knowledge is therefore important to achieve the blue justice in the blue economy initiatives. So the next point that I want to highlight is that the in the multi-day fisheries, there are seasonal and spatial patterns of distribution of fishing operations which are evolved through traditional means of forecasting productive fishing grounds, such as wave heights, behavior of seabirds, various landmarks in the sea, etc. So fisheries authorities have still failed to provide reliable fishing ground forecasting due to the absence of smart technology. Therefore, multi-day fishermen do not rely on the fishing route forecasting information provided by the fisheries authorities. However, monitoring, control and surveillance, that is MCS, is important in the IC fishing. The temporal and spatial patterns of multi-day fishing operations therefore can be reasonably used for the MCS. Also, there's a new trend in the fisheries sector that the regional fisheries management organizations, that is IOTs in the Indian Ocean region, advocate catch quotas for maritime countries. Mr. Hettiarachchi has mentioned this in his presentation. So those proposals are based on the premature assumption that fish catches of highly migratory species are low due to overfishing. But the pelagic fish species, as a response to ocean warming, move to cooler areas with sufficient oxygen, because oxygen content is higher in cooler waters. So there is this is the process called gill oxygen limitation, which brings about pelagic fishes to move to cooler areas or to polar regions, polar regions, which are not accessible for multi-day fishermen using the prevailing fishing techniques, long lining and drift gill netting. Also, countries monitor fishing activities using various methods such as logbook monitoring and VMS, so that fishermen cannot change their fishing areas beyond the allowed region. So the low pelagic catch therefore may not be due to overfishing, but may be due to non-availability of fish in the fishing areas, conventional fishing grounds. So the RFMOs should therefore consider both fishing capacity and environmental or oceanographic factors affecting fish stocks in making regional fisheries management decisions, such as introduction of country-wise catch quotas. Thank you. These are the points that I just want to mention in addition to what Mr. Hettiarachchi mentioned.
Thank you, Professor Amarasinghe. Now I think Professor Chamari Dissanayake will take the turn to discuss about some issues.
Thank you very much. So I want to highlight few points here. So one thing, in the presentation, one thing mentioned was the development of manpower is a big problem here. So actually, it's really difficult to attract youth. So one day, so in the future, we will face some problem related to fisheries and aquaculture if our young generation is not attracting. So we have to think about this seriously. Even universities, so specifically when we consider fishermen, their family members or their sons or daughters, they don't want to do this one. So actually we have to think about this seriously if we want to develop the fisheries sector or the aquaculture sector in this country. So as Professor Amarasinghe clearly mentioned, so we are having new technologies like the fishing ground forecasting technology and the AI and remote sensing technology. So we have to implement these aspects so that these new technology to attract new people or the young generation to this industry. Otherwise, in the future, it will be a big problem. The other thing I want to highlight is we need to find out some mitigation measures to impact climate change. So throughout the world, we are talking about the impact of climate change. So we need to think about smart fisheries and aquaculture. And because we know that due to climate change, sometimes not only the fisher, especially the coastal fishes, they may have some problems because of changing tidal fluctuations. So not only the fishing, the fish varieties, climate resilience fish varieties, we need to think about some kind of the safety at sea as well, because with that the coastal fishes may have some problem. The other thing I want to highlight is that we the post-harvest processing, the post-harvest losses. So we are talking about, in the presentation it was clearly highlighted that we are importing huge amount of fish to this country. But if we can reduce post-harvest losses, so we can reduce the amount of fish we are exporting, we are importing continuously this country. So recently there was a assessment, island-wide assessment conducted by NARA and with the support of Department of Fisheries and funded by the Food and Agriculture Organization. And this survey revealed that more than 30% of fish landed by the multi-day boats. When considered quality-wise, more than 30% is not in good quality. So we have done so many awareness programs, we have done so many trainings, but I think something has happened, but we need to improve this one. So I think as we talk about so many policies, so we better to think about to implement some sort of policy. For example, so if their catches contain high level of post-harvest, the bad quality fish, then we need to implement some kind of penalties, or we need to have some kind of policies. And the other thing is, I think that we are having some problems. So we can, in relation to post-harvest practices, so if we know the fish before they are coming to the land, so if we know what are the fish species available and the amount of catch available in their boats, so then we can reduce post-harvest losses up to some extent, and we can, even fishermen, they can sell their catches in a very competitive manner. So it's good if we can think about e-marketing strategy, like in other developed countries are practicing e-marketing strategy. So then people can, even if we want to buy some fish, we can buy them and we can order them, like most of the goods now we are ordering through e-marketing. So this is another point I want to mention here. And finally, I want to mention that at the last slide, Mr. Hettiarachchi mentioned that regarding the institutional collaboration. So we have talked about this point so long. And so especially if we can do science-based decisions for fisheries management. So we are having data, many institutions including NARA, Department of Fisheries, universities, we are having data. So, but basically what we are doing, we are publishing papers, we are publishing reports. But if we can have a committee, scientific committee, to analyze these data, and at least once a year, like Mr. Hettiarachchi mentioned, IOTC, so they get together once a year and they do the necessary analysis and they implement the measures. So why can't, if we can do the same here, so because fisheries experts are here, so if we can do the same and if we can incorporate these data-based decision or the science-based decisions to manage our fisheries, so we can do a much better job. So I think we have talked about this thing so long time, so it's time for us at least to think about this. And also very recently, we all know that in 2018, the Fridtjof-Nansen survey came to Sri Lanka. And it's a fishery independent survey. So when we look at, so we are thinking that our coastal resources are overexploited. But if we look at the survey report, it's a very comprehensive resource survey. So sometimes we can see that they may have so many untapped resources. Sometimes based on the science, we can take some decisions. And finally, I want to highlight that not only that, we need to do some value addition as well. So value addition is the most important thing. So it should be developed in this country. We are having new technology, so value addition should be promoted, and we need to do something if we want to develop, not develop the fishery sector, but to get some the more income, more foreign income to this important sector. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Chamari. I think next turn is Mr. Nimal Chandraratnas.
Madam Chair, and the ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for the invitation as a panelist to be here. And actually, yesterday that Madam asked me to read the paper. So I read the paper and I picked some points which was addressed by Mr. Hettiarachchi. And I would like to give my comments, the fisheries as well. My area is the aquaculture. So Mr. Hettiarachchi mentioned about these the processing plants. So actually, when he talked about these EU certified processing plant hatcheries, but I think much better if you could incorporate that the fish improvement programs that implement past years, because you know that tuna, the market, now the exporters are that they can attract the market with this, this implementation of the FIP programs, that number of FIP programs implemented by the Seafood Association with the department and the NARA, right? So then that also very much, I think, important area that may address. And also that there are some certification programs implemented by our processing plant in Sri Lanka. So, for example, now that SLSI and also that the GMPs, good management practices, that certificate issued by this Global Aquaculture Alliance, and at least ISO, that number of the processing plants are there, they got certificate. Because if you include this into the report, I think it's that the value of the report also increased, because that much of great attempt have been done by the exporters to market their the production. And also, Mr. Hettiarachchi, I would like to draw your attention to the table 1 that I read. Actually, went through the report. So the table 1, you can mention that the coastal aquaculture production, that actually what you have mentioned, actually the shrimp production. So it was not the coastal aquaculture production. So if you go look back again, the statistical, the web ministry website. So, for example, I will tell you now. 2018, our shrimp production 8,180. So 2019, 6,400. 2020, 7,360. That is actually shrimp production, not the coastal production. That in the website they have stated that coastal aquaculture production, for example, 2018, 1,082 metric tons. 2019, 180 metric ton. 2020, 1,342 metric ton. It comprised, mainly sea bass and the sea cucumber, crabs, saline tilapia, and the milkfish. Those are the species, I think. So that I think, please look back. And also that you have nicely listed this introduced species to Sri Lanka. So, but you know that some were missed because that gift tilapia we introduced in 2000, and saline tilapia introduced 2016, tilapia aureus, blue tilapia, introduced 2016, and the GN carp also 2015. Because this gift tilapia at that time, the stocks were stunted, that their growth was so slow. So that is why the gift tilapia introduced. And saline tilapia, why we introduced that? Because we have a lot of abandoned shrimp farm at the time. So we did not have a good fish to grow. So the saline tilapia can tolerate up to the 15 ppt. So therefore that species we imported. And tilapia aureus, that is blue tilapia, we imported because our cold climatic area, we did not have a good fish to grow. So therefore that blue tilapia imported. And the GN Cup also, that cold climatic area, so we didn't have a good fish. Now, especially that Nurli area, that the GN Cup is performed very well. And also that, that our aquaculture industry, shrimp aquaculture industry, at the moment that our production was around 40,000 because of this Penaeus anemone. That Penaeus anemone we imported in 2019. So that's I just want to mention, and there are some crossbreeding taken place in our centers and form new species, Anu tilapia. That was our genetic expert has done that at the time. So I just wanted to mention that also. And also you mentioned that we should not have a conflict with other sectors. Yes, that is correct. But you know that there are a lot of sectors that their act and legislation and laws has become a big barriers for us to develop this aquaculture in Sri Lanka. For example, aquaculture industrial park, that is wildlife department. So agrarian service department, they are act. So Department of Land Use Planning Department. Now it was established by 2,000 hectares for development of aquaculture. But it's said that their protocol is very high, long protocol, so it takes long time to get the approval for doing this aquaculture. That is there. So I think I can remember very recently that former Director General, former Auditor General, he mentioned about that all the Development Act is repealed and changed and amended. But some other act, right, it is not amended and it was not repealed. So that is one of the biggest issue to develop aquaculture industry in Sri Lanka. That is faced by Madam Chair. She knows very well how we try to resolve these issues, but still that those problems are in the table. So I think we should address that one, those areas. Otherwise, it is very difficult us to develop this aquaculture industry in the country. Another thing that the past few years, not with this chairman, that previous chairman, Mr. Jayant Vijayaratna's time, we have developed a strategic plan. So Mr. Professor Amar Singh also helped us to do that. Please go through that. Lot of the workable strategies are there, and the constraints and issues and threat also addressed in that document. So if you could go through that, some point you can gather from that document. And also that I want to mention now, when you talk about the inland fisheries, so inland fisheries, there are a lot of resources available. Still there are a lot of untapped resources, but we can't touch them because we don't have adequate fingerling. At the moment, I think that 140 million last year we have produced, but our minimum requirement is to around 500. So for that, I think in the strategic plan also that we have mentioned that we need to have some sort of private sector involvement in these culture-based fisheries and the fingerling production in Sri Lanka. Otherwise, we cannot fill this gap. How can we now? We are producing 140. The minimum requirement is 500. So without the support of this private sector, how can we go forward? That question is there. So I think we should address that. And also that now that I heard that the recent development was made by the ministry that some culture-based fisheries activities is trying to be carried out with the public-private partnership. That cabinet paper also has been submitted, but I don't know whether I heard from the ministry that the Moragahakan, for example, so that means that they are not coming to, do the fishing, but they will establish a farm, breeding center, then they will produce fingerling, they will stock the fingerling in the reservoirs. Ultimately, they will buy back the production from the fishermen. Like that model, it should come to the industry, otherwise we cannot, achieve these targets. The chairman is there. Actually, that type of thing, the constraints are there. And also that I just want to tell the Johan too. Now, Johan, you said that in future that you are going to convert this into action plan. So for example, now we will formulate some production plan of our farms. So when we formulate our production plan, we do the back calculation, right? From the production only we calculate the brooders, like that. So when you formulate this action plan, I propose you to go to the constraint, threat, and the opportunities, and then come back to the action plan. Then only, you can have a good, good action plan. That is what we did in our strategy when we formulated this strategic plan for NAGDA. Thank you.
Yeah. I think now it is time for the session to open for the forum, and question and answer session will begin from now.
I think Mr. Nuwan is here. He has completed the PhD. Very soon he will be getting his PhD. And some of the points that I have mentioned was from his PhD research. I think he may be able to highlight something about the disappearance of pelagic fish species from fishing grounds and what are going to do there.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Yes, I would like to mention something about the geoality theory. What we actually found on the analysis is fishes are kind of moving to more deeper and cooler areas when you consider the highly migratory species like tuna and tuna-like species. So in the sector, we know they're using long lines and gill nets to catch these fish by Sri Lankan vessels. But as example, if you consider the long line, they put the long line in a depth around 30-40 meters. Like, so what scientific evidence indicating that we should go beyond that, like 60-70 meters. So the fishing gears, as Professor Upalayamasinghe said, should be kind of modified. And not only that, to cater this modification, the fishing vessels has to be modified. Otherwise, you can't go beyond that and operate these loan lines and to get these loan lines back into the boat likewise. So kind of a technological advances need to be done, and this should be maintained. It should consider in the action plan that Dr. Chauhan mentioned. So that's what I want to say. Yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions? I think current chairman NAGDA would be able to raise points. I think he is very new, but he is very
thank you very much for your excellent presentation and the thought sharing. And being the current or the incumbent chairman of the NAGDA, I would like to re-endorse our former DG said that the competition among the players for the same resources or sharing, that as he mentioned that the coast conservation department, the aggregate service department and they have become some sort of threat or the barriers for the development of the agricultural sector. Very recently we had some sort of discussion with the agrarian service department. Now we are trying to introduce separate set of regulation for developing or the formation of the aquaculture fishery societies in the island. So that we had a recent discussion and they came with that the fact that the powerfulness of their act, so that at some tanks that farmers organizations are not allowed to stock the fingerlings or the price because of their, they say that the tank belongs to the farmers. So sharing has become some sort of issue as far as inland and aquaculture fisheries. On the other hand, that great potential areas are there, surrounded or the owned by the or the covered by the Forest and the Forest Conservation Act. So they are very powerful act. So therefore, there is no way to go for that areas for aquaculture. So that type of issues are there. So I would like to re-endorse what the former DG said. So that is my major concern about that. Anyhow, we are trying to discuss with them and to have some sort of a win-win situation.
Can you comment on port city-like structures building and its effects on the economy and especially fishing, sea organisms and the conditions like now we are going to fill oceans and there's a current and it will cause some changes in the ocean currents and it will affect the fishing and sometimes it will change the situation maybe because of the erosion in some areas will be increased, the wave patterns will be changing. It will change for good or sometimes it's will be having effects. Sri Lanka has built several structures in the sea, going to build also.
Yes, I will answer to a part of your question, but it is too technical for me to answer the entire question. Professor Amata Singh and Mr. Hettiarachchi would be able to answer the sea currents and the other issues related to the fish stocks and all. But as far as I know, there were 2 barrow pits which took sand from Negombo area to the Port City area in 2017 and 18. Though there were some issues related to the fishing community with regard to their fish breeding grounds, the barrow pit, which was very close to the near shore, was not considered for mining sand to fill the land area of the port city, sea area of the port city. Therefore, there were no big issues related to the fish stock depleting in the Negombo area. But I think I am unable to answer the other technical issue which you mentioned about soil erosion, which took place some areas, and the sea current levels that are...
No, not erosion. Sometimes it will be good for the fishing industry or bad for... There's 2 ways.
Yeah.
We have to analyze some, because ocean temperature, if you increase in ocean temperature is there, that will increase the planktons and it will be for the betterment of the fish. Even nuclear plants, areas where nuclear plants are fixed, cooling effects they are using, that increases the planktons because of the high temperature in the ocean.
I think Professor Chamari or Professor Singh would be able to answer to that question.
Regarding increase the water temperature, it's also 2-way issues because when the water temperature is high, oxygen levels go down, right? Because dissolved oxygen is inversely related to temperature. And because in fishes, oxygen is, they are getting oxygen through their gills, which has a 2-dimensional growth, because it's surface area. Yeah. But the fish body size grows in 3 dimensions, right? So 3-dimensional growth and 2-dimensional growth does not tally at one stage, right? Therefore, there is a oxygen limitation in the fishes, right? Because gill surface area is not sufficient to get the enough oxygen. So that the fish growth, fish growth has two components. I don't think this is too technical. It has anabolism and anabolism and catabolism, right? Anabolism is protein synthesis. It requires oxygen. It requires energy. Catabolism is protein denature. It does not require oxygen, right? So even when the anabolism is equal to catabolism, there is no growth. Still, fish needs oxygen for the maintenance, right? So for maintenance energy, fish needs oxygen. So fish can survive with that level of oxygen. But again, if the oxygen levels go down, they have to go to cooler areas that is deeper areas or to the polarward areas, right? So fishes are migrating. That is what Nuan's thesis is all about. When fishes are moving away, but we are restricting our fishing activities because we are monitoring our fishing activities. Fisheries authorities, they have lookbook systems, they have VMS systems. Fishermen can't go anywhere. Fishing activities are monitored. Therefore, they are still restricting in the fishing areas that they are fishing, and fishes are not there. Fishes are going away, right? Perhaps with these development activities, with the changes in water currents, there may be those kinds of impacts, right? So there may be positive effects or negative effects. So I don't think this has been taken into consideration in the EIA reports. Has been. Yeah. I think Professor. Yeah, Professor Hettiarachchi was involved in the EIA study.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Amar Singh, and thank you very much, Mr. Hettiarachchi, for your nice presentation. And in fact, I could not read your paper, but I would like to do that. There are several things that I like to mention. You mentioned about NARA research. Yeah, so better, I think, look at our annual reports also. I am here, I am the Emeritus Professor Jayanta Vijayaratna, formerly with Professor Amar Singh, and currently the NARA chairman. So, better refer our annual reports, and you will see that what type of research is being done nowadays. What you have mentioned may be little bit earlier, but a lot of important research which are beneficial for the fisheries are being carried out. I will mention a few that we have started doing some research on this. When you put these long lines, there is a lot of predation by the marine mammals. So now we have started the research to minimize that. How we are going to do using these fingers and so on. So that research is going on. And also this regarding burrowing sites and how it has affected the fisheries. I think NARA research showed that this area is not suitable to sand mining. So those are the impacts. So they identified a far away place where there is no fish breeding. So those research are very important. General public do not know that. And also the other thing is that there is a lot of foreign exchange generated through the fishing, through export of sea cucumbers nowadays. So NARA is involved in finding out the suitable places for this sea cucumber farming. So they should be cultured in the most suitable places, otherwise there won't be any production. So those things, so NARA is involved in those things. So those are some of the things that NARA is doing. And I like very much Professor Chamari's suggestion that we all get together and analyze all this data and come out with recommendations. And the other thing is, so the this gift this came to me because of this, what is this, port city development. And now, in fact, that breakwater has become an ideal place for coral reefs. There are a lot of live corals there. The recent diving, I have seen the video also in one of the symposiums, and now the biodiversity in that area has increased due to this breakwater. So which, in fact, I predicted as a member of the EIA team. So I am very happy that what I have predicted now is being experienced. So there is, so there was some some objections earlier for this port city development. Although we do not fill that area, in several years' time, that area would become naturally filled due to the sand brought northwards due to water currents. What we have done, what man has done, has accelerated that natural phenomenon and got it filled. If we like or not, in a few, in the long run, this will be filled. And as far as we have studied, there is no impact on fisheries due to the port city.
Any more questions from the audience?
Actually, I have a question to the panelist. Mr. Hettiarachchi said that inland and marine fish production was 500,000 metric tons, and then out of which 475,000 was locally consumed, and then 25,000 metric tons was exported. My question is two-pronged. One is 25,000 metric tons exported, we got a revenue of 300 million, right? So there's a lot of emphasis on export-based fish production, right? And also we do understand 2011 there was a Fukushima in Japan. There was a nuclear power plant issue, and then recently they released water and there was a 90% drop in Japanese fish consumption. There's a market there. Japan, China also is a major importer of fish. CAGR 300% increase from 2015 up to now, their consumption. So there's a market there. And what is Sri Lanka doing in order to strategize, in order to export fish? Because we have around 58,000 square kilometers of EEZ zone where we can fish and export, where India is also intruding. So we have to balance that as well. And how do we cater to these markets, and what are the strategies? Because I know there are only 5 or 6 companies that is registered to export to China. So there are a few barriers there. How do we do that? And the second question is, when it comes to aquarium fish, we know Singapore is the largest export in the world. And what have we done as an ecologically advanced nation? I mean, we've got natural resources, water resources, which is about 18,000 square kilometers of inland water, where we can actually do it as a house husbandry, I mean, a householder, export crop, right? So what have we done about that? And what are the synergies are we having with the private sector and the public sector in order to jointly promote such industries? That's my question.
2 questions you're asking. I think I will ask, Mr. Hettiarachchi to answer on the export.
Yeah, there are about 30 fish processing factories which have been approved by the EU, supplying fish for the EU market. Japanese, of course, different system. They are more interested in sashimi quality fish, sashimi quality tuna. The problem is not enough fish because the fishing vessels, when they go, they venture into sea for fishing, they come back after sometimes one month or so. Then when they come back, fish is not good enough for export. The quality is not good. So these are the problems. I think the ministry has been telling them, come after 10 days. If you come after 10 days, the amount they get is much higher than from export of that amount, but they don't get a bigger volume. So this is the problem. We have to educate fishers, actually, yes.
And also to add a few more things to what Mr. Hettiarachchi mentioned about increasing the export is not that easy because the marine fish stock has been depleted, I think, very largely. I think one must be able to help me because the recent research done by the Fridtjof Nansen, which the report was published in 2018, has found that the previous stock assessment that they have done in 2000, yeah, long ago, yeah. And the fish stock has been depleted in very large volume. And there is only the fish available in the deep sea areas of the eastern part of the Sri Lanka. But unfortunately, our multi-day fishing vessels are all based in the southern part of Sri Lanka, and north and eastern provinces, we don't have much multi-day fishing vessels. That is also one reason. And the technology that the fishing community are using is not a very targeted fish harvesting method. So these issues need to be addressed by the fisheries department, especially Nuan and the team. They were working hard, but as Mr. Hettiarachchi mentioned, it's a big attitude issue with regard to the fishing community. They consider about only the volume. And I have seen to my eyes so many times when I visited the fishery harbors, multi-day fishing vessels which are unloading fish, it is more than 35% of the post-harvest quality lost. I have seen only the very top layers of the fishes in good quality. All other fish, more than 75% of the fish is in very bad quality. That fish cannot be exported.
I think Professor Chamari gave an answer for that. They were trying to, they were telling the fishermen to come quickly and so that you can get, you get good quality fish which fetch a higher price. But they don't listen. And with the help of FAO, NARA also was involved in that research. We have a modified fishing vessel. Funding came from NORAD through FAO. And so that the shelf life within the ship can be increased. But the thing is that they don't come early. They just wait there and get a larger catch, but the price should be low. And the sashimi quality fish, that's what we are exporting. And I think that Nuan's research has shown that the fish are in deeper waters, so in that case there should be some gear modifications for our long-line fishing. So those are the things that we need. And also, Mr. Hettiarachchi, I think that you showed statistics only up to 2020, but after that there was a drastic change that the catch decreased due to this economic crisis and so on. So the fishermen did not go, so the catch was very low. And there is a surplus when we look at the dollar terms, that the earnings that we get by fishery export is very much higher than we spend to import fish. But when we look at the quantity, it is the vice versa. The amount that we export is, the quantity is less than the quantity we import. The reason is that we import the halmessa and very other things.
adding to what Madam said, actually IOTC doing a continuous stock assessment using the catch data. Actually, catch data has to be provided by each CPC, means the countries. So based on that catch data, they are doing an assessment based on the species-wise assessment based on the previous year's catch. So they are doing it in each year. The output of that assessment saying that the yellowfin tuna, which is the most important species for Sri Lankan exporters, are now getting into the red status. They are putting status as red, yellow and green. So and now last year they indicated that big eye also going there with yellow status, and they are predicting that within by 2025 the skipjack is also there. So but I don't know whether they do not consider about this geority theory, because the stock might be in somewhere else. So because they are doing the assessment based on the catch, which I'm going to present to the IOTC in coming meetings. So what Madam said, that there's issue with this stock as well. Yeah.
I think before starting the monitoring of high seas fishing activities, right? Yeah, we are using to comply with the international regulations. We have introduced the logbooks and VMS. Before doing that, fishermen were going anywhere and bringing fish, right? Now the fishermen's activities are controlled. They are monitored. Therefore, fishermen can't go anywhere. Therefore, after implementing these regulations, which are requirements of the international laws, high seas fish production has declined, right? So this, to compensate for that, there should be a strategy to, as Nuan mentioned, to improve the technology, right? So otherwise, we have to go to the productive fishing grounds. The fishing grounds are now away from our fishing areas. So we have to either change the fishing gear or move further.
Can I?
So, regarding the export, how we can improve the export revenue. So one thing is that we need a lot of technology to get more fish basically from offshore waters. And again, we are having this fuel crisis. So rather than thinking about fish, if we can think about other fish, other species like sea cucumbers, as I mentioned clearly. So now there is a very good industry for sea cucumbers. So now we started farming, and we are having some hatcheries, and investors are there. We are not consuming sea cucumbers locally. So likewise, and also if we can do some value addition for sea cucumbers as well, and also the other aquaculture products, I think we can easily increase our export revenue, because fishing is somewhat risky and it needs high technology. With the current economic crisis, it's a bit difficult. But if we do some activities in the coastal waters, so we can again think about to improve our export revenue.
Regarding aquarium fish, actually, as you said, what you said is correct. There's a huge potential for exports. Produce and export ornamental fish in Sri Lanka. There are three factors that affecting the ornamental fish industry. One is quality of fish. So we don't have quality problem actually. There are any business that quality problem is there, but we can minimize that. That the consistent supply also can be done. The variety range. So when you compare to Singapore, they have a lot of varieties. The range is very high. Our basket is a narrow basket. So the product range we have to increase. In order to increase the product range, so it's very difficult for us to increase this product range because of the restriction. Government has a big restriction to import. Now, for example, now if an exporter want to import some, improve their genetics, gene pool of the fish, so what they do is that they are requesting permission from the government authorities. It takes long time. Sometimes they know that if you, for example, now we importing some 100 goldfish from Singapore, whatever, from the Thailand or there. So
what is the impact importing of the 100 goldfish to Sri Lanka? So, but some restrictions are imposed there. So, in order to increase this, the production, ornamental fish production from Sri Lanka, that one thing that we have to give exporters and the producers to freely do this business. So, there should be importation for exportation. So even in the tuna, so how can that if there is no export, that our volume is low. So we have to import and export also, because Thailand and other countries, they import lot and they do the value addition and export. That has to be done. So even in this ornamental fish industry also, that we have to liberate this regulation somewhat, because otherwise that the industry, the product range will not increase. Other thing that with compared to Sri Lanka, our production cost is high. So because Sri Lanka is an island, so all the things what we are using, the raw materials and things that we have to import from outside. So production cost one factor, but if we increase the volume, that the production cost can be minimized, because aquaculture, that the marginal cost is very low. So if you take the soap factory, the sabun factory, so that if you need very the specific material content, raw material content to produce that one. Not aquaculture is not like that. So you can if you can increase the efficiency of this your farm, definitely you can increase the production. So the marginal cost is very high. So these two factors affecting this aquarium industry. That is why it not come up.
Madam, I just want to add something to Professor Amarasinghe mentioned regarding that. I would like to share our day-to-day experience, because now we are having the VMS for all the multi-vessels. So we found that there is a fishing ground within the Maldives waters, which was not explored by Maldives. Now, because of the VMS, our fishermen can't go there. We are arresting them and we are taking the action to them. So I know it's illegal, but our fishermen are not, they don't have to, they can't go there anymore. So that is the experience I want to share.
I think time is up. Then you can. I think I'm especially thankful to the audience for asking very valuable questions at this forum, and also the panelists who gave answers in very technical manner, whereas I was unable to answer since I'm an administrator. And I also answered to some of your questions based on my experience as the Secretary Fisheries for 3 years. And also, I'm very much thankful for Mr. Wijeratne as the current chairman, who came out of his busy work schedules to attend this forum and contribute his valuable inputs. Also, Mr. Hettiarachchi for his presentation and his contribution, and has been a long served officer in the Fisheries Department as well as the Fisheries Ministry. Especially Mr. Nimal Chandraratne and the two professors from the academic for their contribution. And also, I am pretty sure that they have been with the fisheries sector throughout their careers in their universities. During my tenure of office in the fisheries also, I was very much happy about the academic, the university contribution, as well as the NARA contribution. I would not say NARA did not do anything. NARA was doing a very good job, but even the fisheries department, but only issue is the very politically sensitive fisheries is a very politically sensitive area of our economy because of the welfareistic mindset of the fishing community, which has been evolved since the inception of the sector. Aquaculture has the huge potential to develop other than the fisheries sector because our, according to the sea, open sea areas, we have very open sea area. Because of that, unlike a country like Norway, we cannot develop mariculture in Sri Lanka. But only potential that we have is to develop the aquaculture. So the barriers has to be, I think, addressed very fast rather than waiting for 3-4 years to get the approvals from different government entities to get a project off the ground. It is very sad situation for the country. But otherwise, there are enough number of qualified people in Sri Lanka, technically qualified people, scientifically qualified people, as well as the semi-skilled workers for the fisheries sector, other than the, as Professor Chamari Disanayake said, the marine fisheries, very difficult to train the youth to take up the fishing industry. But fishing industry has also to change its current situation from a kind of a livelihood fishing to a commercial fishing, more and more commercial orientation for the fisheries. Then the youth will definitely take over the fisheries sector. Otherwise, they don't like to do a business like their grandfathers did. That is the situation. I think the fisheries department will help the newcomers to enter. And there is also a university in Sri Lanka where the fishing community children can get into the certificate level in VQ, and then they can go up to a degree level. If the fishing community wants to educate their children to take up fisheries businesses, there is an opportunity. And NARA is also doing a very research related to the sustainable fisheries and also the marine ecosystem development. So I think Sri Lanka is not in a bad shape to develop the fisheries sector. Sri Lanka is in a good shape, and also Sri Lanka has a huge potential to develop the fisheries sector to increase its per capita GDP as well as its export revenue as well as its consumption level. 21 kilograms per annum is also accepted level, but when you compare to a country like Japan, their per capita consumption is 60 kilograms or above. So I think with this, I would like to wind up this session. Mr. Hettiarachchi has something to mention.
Productive sessions, we exchange a lot of ideas. As Ms. Adhikari said, there's a huge potential for development of fisheries, particularly aquaculture. And we also get together and exchange ideas and do whatever is necessary. And these two chairmen are very experienced people in the sector, so I think they can sort of direct their institutions for further development. And also this Gamini Korea Foundation has come to the path to guide our people with the support of the expatriate community. So I think with that I conclude my remarks.
Thank you very much. In order to, concluding today's session, there are a few announcements that I would like to make. The next session on the session number 14 of the SLIF will be on the IT sector, which would be presented by Mr. Dinesh Satrukalsinghe, which will be held on December 14th. So you're all invited to join this session. That's at 4:30. And also we have a program called the Frida Korea Awards, which will be held on December 8th. There's a small advertisement that I would like to show on this.
ඔබ තිරයෙන් දිලිඳුකම පරද වූ කාන්තාවක් නම් කියන්න ඔබේ කතාව මුළු ලොවටම ඇහෙන්න. හමුවන්න කතා රචකේ රචකයිනි. මෙවැනි දිරිය කතුන් හඳුනාගන්න අභියෝග ජයගත් ඇගේ කතාව ලියන්න ඔබටත් ආරාධනා. ක්‍රීඩා කොරයා සම්මාන උළෙලට ඔබත් සහභාගී වන්න. හොඳම කතාවට ඔබ දෙපළටම වටිනා ත්‍යාග. ගාමිණී කොරයා පදනමේ ව්‍යාපෘතියක්. පිවිසෙන්න gaminikoreafoundation.lk.
So yeah, we have asked writers to write on women who have gone through struggles in their life and who have overcome their situations, and we are awarding them for their stories, which will be later taken up by those policymakers in order to correct and support them. So that award ceremony is going to be on December 8th. And and finally, I would like to thank, in drawing conclusion, I would like to thank Mr. Hettiarachchi for presenting a formidable paper on the fisheries sector. I'm sure there is a lot of questions that you would like to find out and would like to shed light upon later on, and I think Mr. Hettiarachchi will also further refine his paper based on the discussion that we had today. And I would also like to make a special thanks to our session chair, Miss Mangalika Adhikari, former Secretary, Ministry of Fisheries and Ministry of Justice, for taking a precious time out for being here with us. Our panelists, Mr. Upali Amarasinghe, Professor Shamari Disanayak and Mr. Nimal Chandaratna, for taking their time off for being here with us, and I would like to thank them profoundly for their time and for their commitment. And also I would like to thank our CEO Lasta Devendra and our chairman Dr. Lloyd Fernando, who has been formidable in organizing this event, and also our team behind the scenes who have been helping us. Last but not least, I would like to thank each and every one of you who have participated for this event and for gracing this presence. And yeah.
I have just one small thing to say. I started by saying I know very little or hardly anything about the fisheries sector. I learned quite a bit, but that has created more questions in my mind than I had earlier. What I want to tell you is that we won't just let you go. You see, you have got, we have learned a lot from you, and we are going to get in touch with you to formulate the policies on the fisheries sector. Very soon, we will be appointing a specialist planner to get in touch with you and to put all these things together. And so your valuable contribution will be reflected there, and which will then be incorporated into a national planning process. We are working with the National Planning Department, the Association of Planning Association. Then we are working with the National Science Foundation. You see, all those. You see, our task is to bring everybody together, so that at the end of the day, we have something solid to give the people. It's not just a case of, having lectures or having kind of, research activities, but putting them together for the sake of the country through a process of participation. You see, so it's not going to be just the Gaminee Korea Foundation. It is your product that will be reflected there. So thank you very much. We'll keep in touch. At the moment, I would like, the tea is open there, so please come and have some tea and then have a chat with us. Okay.